friends. I am indeed very happy and privileged to be here, to be invited to talk to the real stakeholders in the judicial system about the problems which ail it and the reforms which are required. Because I say this because it is really the citizens who are the consumers of justice in this country who are the real stakeholders in an efficient, functional judicial system. Lawyers and judges are also stakeholders, but they also have a vested interest. And therefore, if solutions are to be found, if solutions are to be pushed through with the authorities, they will have to be done by the citizens who are the real consumers of justice who will do it. Now, I propose to briefly give you an overview of the judicial system today, the problems that plague it, and the solutions or reforms in my view which are required, and I will thereafter request my colleague Indra Uni Nair, who has been dealing with our case on speeding up the judicial process, to talk for 5 minutes about the specifics of that. Firstly, 70-80% people of this country are unable to access the judicial system because you cannot access this system which we have in place without lawyers, which were withdrawn from the regular courts and agreed by the litigants to be decided by this judge. Now, he used to call both the parties with all their documents and their witnesses. He would then and there ask the plaintiff what his problem was. He would ask the defendant what his defense was. If there was a disputed fact, if he needed to see any documents, he would ask the two parties for their documents. He would see them then and there. If there was a further dispute and some witnesses were required, he would ask for their witnesses. He would examine them then and there and allow the other party to cross-examine them, and thereafter decide the case. It was a 1-hour program, and in that 1 hour he used to decide 2 to 3 cases and give reasons for his decision. Now, I saw this program at least 30-40 times. That means I must have seen at least 60-70 cases being decided, and I felt that perfect justice had been done in each one of those cases. There is no reason why normal cases, ordinary cases of ordinary people cannot be decided in this manner. In fact, we should be able to use the benefits of information technology to record the proceedings such that even oral applications can be entertained. You don't have to file a written petition. If an illiterate person were to go to a court and say that, look, my land has been encroached upon or occupied by this person, or my cow has been stolen by this person, or whatever, that application should be entertained by the court, even if it's an oral application. And the whole thing can be, today video recording is very simple, it can be done. So therefore, we need to firstly simplify the systems and procedures of the court so that people can access the courts without lawyers. Today, if a poor person is picked up by the police and charged with any offense, he can hardly defend himself, and that is why the majority of the people in the jails in this country are under trials, because they have not been able to organize their defense or even get bail. They are just at the mercy of the police and the judges. So 80% people are shut out from the judicial system at the very threshold because they cannot afford lawyers. Then out of the remaining 20% who can afford lawyers, again 90% of them get frustrated because of delays in the courts. So they keep running around, they keep coming on various dates. Even if the case is decided in the trial court, appeals languish in courts for a long time, and by the time their cases get decided, it is of no use to them. They have already spent much more in terms of time and money than they get at the end of it. And even if you manage those lucky 10% of the remaining 20%, that is 2%, who are able to get their cases, who have lawyers and can get their cases decided quickly, even there the chances are 50% that their cases would be decided on various extraneous considerations or just on account of incompetence of the judge, would be wrongly decided because the judge is incompetent or because he is corrupt. Because there is substantial corruption in the judiciary. Transparency International had done this corruption perception survey in which they found that the judiciary is regarded as the second most corrupt institution in this country. And this corruption, unlike, in fact, contrary to the popular belief which has been propagated by some judges of the Supreme Court and some senior lawyers there, that corruption in the judiciary is confined to the lower judiciary and the higher judiciary is relatively free from corruption, this is not a correct perception. As I pointed out in one of my interviews, for which I am facing contempt also, I said that half of the last 16, 17 Chief Justices are corrupt. Now I said that because I had enumerated all those Chief Justices, the last 16, 17, I had marked who I regarded as corrupt, who I regarded as honest, and I said it deliberately in order to dispel this mistaken notion that many people have, incorrect notion that corruption in the judiciary is confined to the lower judiciary and the higher judiciary is relatively free from it. In fact, if that were the case, there is no reason why the high courts should have been tolerating this corruption in the lower judiciary, because the high courts have full control, disciplinary control over the lower judiciary. It is the high courts and the Supreme Courts which are not accountable at all, because nobody has any disciplinary power over high court judges or the Supreme Court judges. The only thing that you can do to them is remove them by way of impeachment, which we have seen is a very, very difficult, virtually impractical process. You can't remove them. You cannot even register an FIR against a judge of the High Court or the Supreme Court without the prior written permission of the Chief Justice of India. That is because of a judgment that the Supreme Court gave in Veeraswamy's case in 91, after which there has not been an FIR registered, not a single FIR registered against any sitting judge of the High Court or the Supreme Court. Only recently, for the first time, the present Chief Justice has given permission to prosecute a sitting judge, that is this lady called some Yadav in the Chandigarh, Nirmal Yadav in the Chandigarh High Court. Otherwise, we have written, addressed applications to several Chief Justices seeking permission to register FIRs against several judges. They have all been denied every time. So, you can't remove a judge, you can't even register an FIR against a judge, even if he is involved in corruption or any other crime for that matter, without the prior written permission of the Chief Justice. If you expose a judge by publicly saying that, look, he has done this corrupt act, you are liable to face contempt. So you cannot even publicly expose a judge. And today the situation is that you cannot even ask questions from the judiciary under the Right to Information Act, because various high courts have framed rules which say that for every question you will be charged 500 rupees, unlike other public authorities which charge only 10 rupees. Recently, one of my friends asked a question from the Lucknow bench of the Allahabad High Court. One question, they said, your one question contains 6 questions, so first deposit 3,000 rupees before we will answer that question. And the answer would have been that, sorry, we cannot answer this question because this is exempt under so and so. Even when the Central Information Commission has on various occasions ordered the High Courts and the Supreme Court to give information about certain things, about administrative and financial matters, they have gone up in writ petitions to the High Court or eventually in appeal to the Supreme Court and interdicted the disclosure of that information, with the result that in no case we have sought information about appointments of judges, all denied. Central Information Commission told them to provide that information. They filed an appeal before themselves, got a stay. They have referred it to a constitution bench, will remain in cold storage for the next 20 years. For the next 20 years, we will not be able to access any information about appointment of judges. And we know that that's a huge scandal. One of the problems today about judicial accountability is that there is no transparency, no system in the method of appointing judges. Earlier, judges were appointed by the government where political considerations prevailed. Now they are appointed by a coterie called Collegium of Judges, of senior judges, where largely nepotistic considerations prevail. Sometimes there are good chief justices who have some more extensive consultations, but there is no system in place. There is no method by which even this collegium of judges decides who should be appointed. No criteria has been framed, that is, what are the qualities that you are looking for in a judge. No method has been decided as to how you will determine comparative merit among different candidates, as to how you will evaluate whether different candidates possess those qualities and to what degree, how you will decide integrity. IB report is sought. We all know IB can write anything. In one case, they wrote that a judge this man is an alcoholic about a person who had not touched liquor in his life. So there is just no method, no system. It's all decided arbitrarily by this collegium of judges and usually on nepotistic considerations. They just decide to appoint whoever they know. Now, out of those 800 odd judges who are in the high courts, who should be brought to the Supreme Court is decided on the